Hello, and welcome to Political Science 101 or History 101. It is the history of the American political system. And today we are on Chapter 9, Campaigns and Elections, which is quite apropos for our timing and current events. Okay, the title of our chapter, we're on Chapter 9. You'll be reading Chapters 9 and 10 this week. Our learning outcomes for Campaigns and Elections, Chapter 9, are explain how elections are held and how the Electoral College functions in a presidential election. Discuss how candidates are nominated. Indicate what is involved in launching a political campaign today and describe the structure and functions of a campaign organization. Describe how the internet has transformed political campaigns. And summarize the current laws that regulate campaign financing and role of money in modern political campaigns. I also want to add, not only do we need to look at how the internet has changed the way that we do campaigns, but also television and cable in general. Just an interesting story, when CNN came about, it was like a 24-hour news coverage. And so therefore, it changed the way that news was reported. Now you have several news stations with cable that run 24-hour news, and sometimes they don't have enough to fill it up, so they kind of fixate on certain things. Whether you're watching Fox News, which is supposed to be more conservative, or CNN, which is supposed to be more liberal, both of them do this. They fixate on a certain thing and kind of put what is called the us-them paradigm. And you have to be very careful of this. And this is going to be one of your historical analysis words. The us-them paradigm, we've already talked about polarity. We've already talked about what a binary is. It's, opposite ends of the spectrum. You have to be really, 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 really careful about this. So us and them, kind of what I've done with some, talking with some other professors, what I've kind of learned is Washington used to be a place where both Democrats and Republicans went to parties, they conversed, they talked, but with the different news stations kind of blowing up this idea of the two-party system that George Washington actually, warned us of, you have what is creating an us-them paradigm where we forget about the ways in which we are the same, and we only focus on, and oftentimes demonize both sides of the fence, how we are different. So the us versus them paradigm, when reality, if we got together and communicated, would go closer to the center and realize our sameness, our humanity. You can do the us-them paradigm, whether it's someone from a different country, someone of a different religion. And I'm not saying that you need to change your ideologies, but there's a lot more that you have in common in this world because of your humanness and your humanity than your differences. And focusing on your sameness often bridges the gap between communication. Anyway, so we'll talk more about that later. Okay, so it opens up with, should we let political contributors conceal their identities? And again, we have talked about before, a closet Democrat, a closet Republican, in different situations where this takes place. I once knew some family members who worked in the, a factory situation where they made a type of car and it was unionized. These family members were Republicans, but were called closet Republicans because they didn't tell anyone that they were Republicans because of the backlash that would have occurred. But that flip side is also, I actually have been in that situation. There are different groups, different churches. If you're in a church and you're, extremely conservative church, and if you say that you're a Democrat, you could really take some heat, some very unkind, conversations because of their ideology that you can't be a church member of that church or this certain type of religious affiliation and still be a Democrat and be, good with God or that sort of thing, or vice versa. It could be the same. And that would be a closet Republican, or if you went to a different type of church, and it's discussed actually in the textbook. It talks about different types of churches kind of supporting this or aligning with this, and for the reasons that they do, which is really interesting. You could be a closet Democrat or a closet Republican many different places. So as I read this first page about should we let political contributors conceal their identity or not, you could receive backlash if it was known that you were giving money to one party to another. So I'm really in the middle of that. And so for our forum this week, I really think I'm going to try to, I've been kind of concocting a forum question that would really make us think about that. Is anonymity good? Is it bad? What are the pros and cons? And so that's what it has right here. Full disclosure, please. Tell us where that money is coming from and who is supplying it. Or political privacy should be a civil right. Okay, so this one really makes me think this week because I'm not really sure I have a stance. I can see both sides, and that's difficult. But I like it when you as students write on those discussion boards and make me think. And sometimes you guys go crazy and do amazing. And you really get me to think and come up with points that I would never have thought of. So I'm very excited this week. I want to hear what you have to say. So it is talking about the campaigns, the elections, how we elect a candidate. It's kind of screwy. As I read this, I'm like, really? And kind of what I gleaned was, we are wasting so much money that we could be spending, on education or on, uplifting, this group or helping this group. Anyway, it was just kind of disheartening to see how much money is spent in the elections. Let's see. So the general election, the most familiar kind of this general election happens in November, and it's usually the first Tuesday after the first Monday. Okay. I love that they go into the Australian ballot. Since 1888, all states in the United States have been using the Australian ballot, a secret ballot that is prepared, distributed, and counted by the government officials at public expense. So, when I worked the polls several years ago, I believe it was 2004. I really need to look at that. There is a ballot that the government prints out, and we hand it to the person, and that's the only time that a poll worker can touch your ballot is when it's handed to you. My job, I think I told you, was to stand at the ballot. In Ohio, they have this big machine, and you have to kind of feed it in, and you have a hard copy, of your ballot, one that you can touch, and then you also have an electronic copy. So I was supposed to stand there and feed it. I was supposed to show you how to feed it, and I had a sample one. And many people would say, well, could you put it in for me? Which I would love to help you put it in for you, except that that's illegal. And we were at a lovely school, lovely neighborhood. It was fantastic because mothers, and fathers could actually walk and stroll their children to school. It was within a school. We were on a stage. And so I got to hold lots of babies because moms would come up with their strollers. Babies would be crying and be like, would you like for me to hold your baby while you vote? And I guess I must have an honest face. And I have 3 sons, so I got to hold a lot of baby girls that day. And I definitely got my fix. But so it is prepared. Australian ballot is definitely a definition you want to know. Representatives from each party. They're called poll watchers. I had no idea it was called a poll watcher. I knew I was a poll worker. I knew that I had to be very careful how I said that I worked the polls because that could take on a different connotation, a different meaning, and wouldn't be prudent for a teacher to have necessarily that title. So poll watchers, what was fantastic about our precinct, and I think I probably said this in another lecture, was there were 3 Republicans and there were 3 Democrats, which I do have a question. What happens if you're an independent? I'm not really sure. Anyway, the man who was in charge of our precinct was absolutely lovely. His wife brought us lunch that day. He was a Democrat. He was so fair. He was so respectful, so kind. He gave us, he treated us all very equal. I was thrilled because I really felt like the system was working. I was seeing democracy work, and it was beautiful. I had some amazing conversations with people because really I kind of was kept in a bubble growing up, and I was like, oh, do not be friends with that other political party. That is bad. And now it's so funny as an adult. I love to talk to people who are mature, don't scream, don't go bananas, and talk about why they are, the political party that they are. So the 3 of us and the 3 of us, we worked together. Whenever something was done, it was always done, with 1 Democrat, 1 Republican. It went so smoothly. We had one issue that was really awesome. This woman came, and I think I told this story before. I apologize. It was fascinating for me as a history teacher to work the polls, and I wasn't working at the time because I was staying home with my youngest. And I've never worked so hard in my whole life. Like, it was a over 12-hour shift because you have to get there like 6 before they open. You have to stay and do all the tallying and that sort of thing. And then I drank way too much coffee because Starbucks provided free coffee, and I truly believe I had a coffee hangover. But we did fantastic. But this one woman, she was foreign, but she was allowed to, she spoke a different language, and she was able to vote, so she was a citizen. And she came in and she said, she had already touched her ballot. She said, I forgot to get the, memorabilia, not memorabilia, that's the wrong word. How about the informative, those pamphlets they have that say, this person stands for this person stands for this. She said, I really wanted to know which party is for the people. And, okay, that was quite the question. And I was like, well, it really depends, because she kept asking me, which party's for the people? And I thought, you know what? The party I think that's for the people may not be the one that she thinks. And if she needs to go back out there and get the pamphlets, and I'll be really honest, okay? I knew she wasn't talking about the party that I supported. Even though I believed that my party was for the people, just different cues and different things. I knew it wasn't. And if I told her which party was for the people, that's not democracy. And I'm not a perfect person. I'm not trying to say that. But in that moment, I felt like I did my civil duty. And so I asked my poll working, I guess we're called poll watchers. I said, she wants to go back out there and get pamphlets.
It's 12 o'clock.
It is 12 o'clock. And she needs to get those. She meant to get them on the way in. She didn't. I said, is there any way we can do this? And our head guy was like, well, we can't touch her ballot. And I said, how about if we let her put it in an envelope, set it on the table, and we'll all watch it. None of us will touch it. And he said, that's a great idea. And so she went out. She got the pamphlets that she wanted. And I was pretty sure she did not vote for the people that I would have voted for. She did not vote for the president that I would have voted for. But you know what? That's what it's all about. It's about every person having a voice of some sort. And I have never been more proud of democracy and the right to vote. And she voted like she just canceled my vote out. But that's really what it's about. It's not about controlling other people's voices or their votes. Anyway, sorry about the little anecdote. I don't know if I told you before, the other precinct almost got turned in because they were touching ballots. And I think actually our head guy had a call out because they were touching ballots. You're not allowed to touch ballots. A man knew you weren't allowed to touch his ballot, and the person in charge touched it, and there was a little screaming match. Yeah. So it was not running smoothly. Okay. The winner-take-all system is really confusing, but they were trying to give the people a voice and a choice without direct control. Obviously, democracy was founded before the French Revolution, but if you study the French Revolution, you just have to be very, very careful of the, the popular vote kind of being too emotional. But yet in America, when you study it, I really feel like it is sound. It is a voice and a choice. Okay.